The commies are at it again, developing atomic capabilities. General Stavros has a Siberian informant who knows where the Soviet atomic processing facilities are hidden. Stavros insists on going to meet him, personally. Stubborn old mule thinks he's a damn field agent. Yeah. Damn. The Soviets must have gotten wind of the Stavros meeting. Intel received word of a large Soviet force moving to intercept. I told Stavros he'd get himself killed playing these spy games. Help him out any way you can. Once the old mule's back, use the information he's got and find and destroy the Red's atomic operations. Nukes, bases, convoys, everything. Kick those commies out of Siberia. For me.
20 minutes remaining. Training. Unit ready. Our base
ready
is
and wait. Agreed. Very well.
Building. Repairing.
Yes, sir. Very well. Reporting. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir.
Unit
Agreed.
ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Very well. At what? Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Very well. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes, sir.
lost.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Waiting orders. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Very well. Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Vehicle affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Vehicle
Unit
affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Reporting. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative.
Repairing. Our base is
Waiting
under
order.
attack.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Vehicle reporting.
Unit
Acknowledged.
repaired.
Affirmative. Sir.
Repairing.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Vehicle affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
repaired.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Awaiting orders.
Unit repaired.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
10 minutes remaining.
Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
reporting.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Vehicle reporting.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting.
Unit
Affirmative.
repaired.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. 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 Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Building.
Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Repairing.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit repaired.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes,
Unit
sir.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Warning.
Affirmative.
5 minutes
Acknowledged.
remaining.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Acknowledged. 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 Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Training.
Affirmative. 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 Affirmative.
Warning.
Acknowledged.
4 minutes remaining.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Training.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Unit ready.
Ready and
Training.
waiting. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
At once.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Warning.
Acknowledged.
3
Affirmative.
minutes remaining.
Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Base is
Affirmative.
under attack.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Waiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Awaiting order. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes, sir.
lost.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Warning.
Acknowledged.
2
Affirmative.
minutes
Reporting.
remaining.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Warning. 1
Affirmative.
minute
Yes, sir.
remaining.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Vehicle reporting. Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes,
Convoy
sir.
approaching.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Ready and waiting.
Unit lost.
Reporting. Affirmative. Vehicle affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Sir. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Reporting. Knowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting.
Cannot
Acknowledged.
deploy here.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Convoy approaching.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Yes, sir.
lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Awaiting Agreed. Very well. Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Awaiting
ready.
orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Reporting. Acknowledged. Reporting. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. At once. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Our base is under attack.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Preparing.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Convoy approaching.
Awaiting orders.
Unit prepared.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Preparing.
Yes, sir. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit prepared.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Unit lost.
Vehicle
Soviet
reporting.
reinforcements
Acknowledged.
have arrived.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Soviet reinforcements have arrived.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Soviet
Affirmative.
reinforcements have arrived. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Reporting. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Waiting orders.
Preparing.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Waiting order. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Unit repaired.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Repaired.
Awaiting order. Very well. Affirmative. Of course.
Repaired.
Reporting. Yes, sir.
Unit
Reporting.
lost.
Reporting. Awaiting order. Yes, sir.
Unit
Yes, sir.
lost.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
prepared.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Reporting.
This is
Affirmative.
Repaired.
Awaiting orders.
Vehicle repaired.
Acknowledged.
Building. Repairing. Unit repaired.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting order. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. 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 Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Yes, sir.
lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Unit lost.
Reporting. Of course. Yes, sir.
Unit
Yes, sir.
lost.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Reporting.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Convoy approaching. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Awaiting order. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Vehicle affirmative.
Reporting. Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit lost. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting.
Unit ready. Building.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Awaiting
Insufficient
orders.
funds.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Convoy approaching.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Our base is under attack.
Affirmative. 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 Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit lost. Building.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building. On
Acknowledged.
hold. Cancel.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Convoy
Affirmative.
approaching. Prepare.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Very well.
Unit lost.
Of course. Vehicle acknowledged. 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 Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Very well. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Convoy approaching.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Base is under attack.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost. Mission accomplished.